G'day mate, 40 here. So Mark Halperin made a great video last night where he talked about how despite 5 weeks of great press, Kamala Harris still trails Donald Trump in the battleground states, and there are no indications that she's going to overcome that, because usually the undecideds will swing against the incumbent party in this situation. And so, as far as electoral college victory prospects, Donald Trump looking very strong. And we haven't yet had detailed reports about Kamala Harris's drinking problem or Xanax problem. All right, so if you're going to have an October surprise, it'll likely be personal revelations about Kamala Harris. That's what Mark Halperin said this week. Good article in Foreign Policy magazine about what the second Trump term will mean for American foreign policy. Do you know that 2 decades ago, the American and European Union economies were approximately the same size? And now, 2 decades later, the American economy is 80% bigger. 80% bigger, and the American economy now constitutes 26% of the world's GDP, right? This is the highest American percentage in 2 decades. So for all the doom and gloomers in America talking about how America's finished, all right, America has been growing far more rapidly than China, even on the basis of China's own statistics. The country is suffering a lost decade, right? A lost decade of essentially no growth, except for most artificially pumped up through enormous leveraging of enormous amounts of government debt, far in excess of what the United States has. So you hear very little anymore about how China is rising to the top of world power. So the United States not only constitutes 26% of the world's economy, at its highest mark in 2 decades, the United States spends more on defense than every other country in the world put together. So America has the dominant world economy. It has the world's dominant military. And America is less dependent on trade than any other major nation. America is the only major nation that is growing over the past 3 years consistently. And the American economic dependence on China is far smaller than it was when Donald Trump took office in 2017. We have been consistently moving away from trade and dependence with China. Right, we've overtaken China as Germany's #1 export partner. Right, we're a net energy exporter. Right, the United States economy is a behemoth. And because it's so strong, and by comparison all the other competing economies are so weak, they will have to bow to American demands with regard to trade deals, because the strong take what they want and the weak endure what they must. So America will be able to ride out a trade war with China with much less pain and dislocation than it could have 7 years ago. All right, some kind of major world trade war will have much less effect on the United States than on any other major nation. So the U.S. will increasingly be able to set the rules for world trade, because it basically has relatively little need for any other country compared to other countries' needs to trade with the United States. And then I saw a great article in Arts, and the headline was something like, prostitutes have no choice. Right? It's a bizarre part of left-wing woke thinking that certain marginalized groups are not accountable for any of their behavior. So prostitutes are not accountable for any of their behavior. It's just structure that forces them into things. So I don't believe that our will is sovereign, right? We all live in a society. We're constantly surfing trends and forces that are much stronger than us. So I'm not totally on the side of free will and individual choice and individual accountability. I recognize that there are stronger forces in the individual, but this notion that prostitutes just have no choice, or that the homeless just have no choice in being homeless, I don't buy that. And there's also this growing left-wing trend to not describe prostitutes as prostitutes or whores or sex workers. No, they are people engaged in prostitution. So I'm sorry if I've ever called you a whore, and I should have just said that you're a transgender person engaged in prostitution. And the left and the elite media, they no longer like to talk about the homeless, right? Instead, they talk about people who are experiencing homelessness. So part of being in the elite, the highly educated, right, the new class, the new dominant elite class, is that there are constantly new updates for how you should speak about things that are usually prolix, right, unnecessarily wordy, and that sound stilted and gay and dumb. And so, oh, you can't call them whores. They're just women who happen to be engaged in sex work. You can't call the homeless homeless, right? They just happen to be experiencing a lack of housing. Illegals aren't illegal. Nobody's illegal. They just don't have their papers. They're just undocumented. If only they had their papers, they'd just be fine.